Hello, all my WPS artists. This week, we are going to be painting a background with watercolors. The materials that you will need is thick white paper, a paint set, a paintbrush, a heavy water bowl with a little bit of water at the bottom, and a napkin. Before we start painting and mixing colors together, you need to know the complementary colors. Complementary colors are across from each other on the color wheel. Complementary colors are purple and yellow, red and green, and orange and blue. These colors look great next to each other, but you should not mix these colors together unless if you're looking to make the color brown. This week, we will be painting the background. The background is the area behind the painting. So if you're outside, it's usually the sky. And if you're inside, it's usually the wall. Monet was famous for using watercolor paints. So let's take a look at some of his watercolor paintings before we begin. Notice that he likes to use the cool colors, blues, greens, and teals, and he mixes them together for his watercolor paintings. His background is usually water, so you can make your background look like water, the sky, or even a painting on the wall. It could be abstract. It could look like nothing at all except swirls of colors and practice mixing different colors together. Before we begin painting, let's take a close-up look at how I use the water and paint in my painting. Notice first I dip it into the water and make sure that it's not too wet by tapping it on the side. Then I dip it into the color that I want and swirl it around a few times before putting it on my paper. If I want to mix two colors together, I always dip the brush into the water first, then the paint color that I want to add in, and then put it onto the paper. Each time, I'm first dipping it into the water, tapping off any extra water, and then dipping it into the color that I want. I do not want to mix the paint colors together on my palette, which is where my paint is located. Okay, let's begin our painting. Think about the colors that you want to use in your background. Remember, it doesn't have to look like anything. It can just be swirls of color together on your paper. First, you're going to dip into the water, then the color you want to use, and swirl your paintbrush around a little bit. Then you can apply the paint onto the paper in a back and forth motion. Now I'm going to add in a second color. I'm choosing orange and yellow because they're next to each other on the color wheel and will make an orange-yellow when mixed together. I'm not mixing them together on my palette. I'm always washing my paintbrush off in the water first before getting a new color. If my paintbrush gets too dry, I can try adding just a little water to my brush and putting it onto the paper to make it wet again. Watercolor paints are meant to be very light in color. If your color is very dark, you need to add more water to your paintbrush and brush it back and forth across your paper to water it down and make the color lighter. Now I am mixing in a third color into my painting. I am using warm colors, the red or pink, the yellow, and the orange because they are all warm colors and they're next to each other on the color wheel, making a nice mix when put together. Remember the complementary colors that we talked about. Those colors, when mixed together, will make brown. If you're looking to make a brown, mix complementary colors across from each other on the color wheel. If you don't want to make brown, mix colors that are next to each other on the color wheel, like yellow and green, green and blue, or pink and orange. Now I'm adding some blue into my painting. Notice, water first, then the blue color paint, and blue and green mix together really nicely to make a blue-green. Keep going back and forth across your paper until your whole paper is covered with color. Remember, you don't want to use too much paint or you use up all the paint on the first project. We want our colors to be very light on watercolor paintings. Now I am adding in some violet to make a beautiful blue-violet color at the top. Once your paper is filled with color, you are finished. Remember, it doesn't have to look like anything at all except just a mix of colors in the background. Now save this paper in a very safe place to dry. We will need it next week when we will be adding things to the foreground or front of our painting. Don't forget to clean up your work area once you are finished. And don't forget to bring this to next week's class so we can finish the project then. I can't wait to see it. Bye!